Hello, good evening, good morning, and welcome to the SSF Romcast. I am, as always, Jessica Haynes, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host,
Emma Jackson. Hello.
as well as a few other little faces you may notice if you're watching us on the screen.
That's it, because we're here for our winter special. We're calling it the Winter Witch Special. And it's kind of in celebration of the boom in witchy rom-coms that we've been seeing happening.
All of the goodness.
Yeah, that's it. They've always been there. Very popular, but it's been kind of growing from indie writers, and traditional are kind of embracing it now. We're seeing it a lot more in the shops. And I think this autumn in particular, it really seemed like there were a lot out. So we thought, why not? Why don't we dig into that? And we've invited some other authors of witchy rom-coms. We have two lovely authors here. We have Sarah Hawley and we have Kenzie, and I'm going to hand you over to them so that they can introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their books. Should we start with Sarah?
Yes. Hello. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I wrote the Glimmer Falls fantasy romance series. The first book is A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon. And then the second book, which came out November 30th, is A Demon's Guide to Wooing a Witch. And then there's going to be one more in it, which is A Werewolf's Guide to Seducing a Vampire. So yeah, they're very whimsical, silly, high heat paranormal rom-coms, and they've been really fun to write.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about the first one, and you just had the cover reveal, didn't you, for the vampire one? Sorry, I didn't.
Yes, that's
they're long titles.
I
didn't have the name.
I know. I lose track too. Yes, so just revealed the cover for the US version of Werewolf's Guide, and then I've seen sketches for the UK cover. It's published through Glance in the UK, and they look amazing. So I'm really hopeful I get to reveal that soon as well.
Oh, so are we.
Two different covers as well. Do you have a preference? Can you say?
Oh, I can never say that.
You can never say.
I mean,
there's something I like about the US covers, and there's something I like about the UK covers. They're very different. I do like that the UK covers have some foil on it, so they're shiny, which is always important. But no, I think just two different artists and two different styles, and I love them all.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, thank you. It's lovely to have you. And also, Kate, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hiya, I'm Kate Kenzie, and I'm the author of A Blend of Magic, which is set in Whitby, and it's a festive romance following Willow, the owner of the Enchanted Emporium, and she has to discover there's more to life than her Maine Coon cat, Vincent, potions and cups of tea.
More could there be to life?
I was going to say, yeah, that is a questionable.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Okay, so yeah, shall we get into it?
So, as you were growing up, were there witches or magic or things out there that you think influenced you and your writing style?
Who should we
Yes.
start with?
Yep, fire away.
Oh, I'm ready.
Yeah, go
absolutely. I mean, my mother was the sci-fi fantasy reader in the house, and so she shared her whole collection with me. So obviously she had big classics like Tolkien and Roger Zelazny and things like that. But I would say one of the more formative influences on me when I was young was the Song of the Lioness series and everything else by how I've just learned you pronounced it Tamora Pierce instead of Tamora Pierce. I was pronouncing it wrong my entire life. So everything Tamora Pierce wrote, they're beautiful middle grade YA, girls with magical powers and animal shifting and all sorts of interesting things. And so I would say that was tremendously formative when I was young.
Awesome.
I think they were mentioned on our New Year special, weren't they, with Julia Boggio? Do you remember? I think.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes,
I think that was one
yes,
of
yes.
our recommendations, and I still haven't got around to checking them out. But
so many books.
that's two now.
Yeah.
Saying that they're worth looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how about you, Kate?
Initially, I think it was books like the West Witch series, but then I went into horror and Scream comics and Misty. and I just fell in love with anything supernatural. So yeah.
Yeah, The Worst Witch were probably one of the first ones I ever read of. Do you have those in the US, Sarah? The Worst Witch books, or are they a very UK thing?
I haven't heard of them. I'd like to look that up.
I was going to say
that I've got one down here.
Yeah, that's kind of formative UK. We're going to see quite a difference between US UK, because even now my girls brought the Worst Witch books home from the school library.
Yeah, and I think we also, like, for me as well, it was also moving on to like TV and Sabrina the Teenage Witch, which I feel really embodies a bit of the fun element that you're getting in like the witchy rom-coms that are popular now. That kind of, because it's quite a different side to it, isn't it? Sort of, you get witches where it's very serious and like looking at kind of the persecution aspect and the historical aspect of it, but then you can also, it seems to have the lighter side too, so it depends what tone you're going for. It's interesting. So given that, you know, you both loved witchy things and supernatural things from a young age, how long have you wanted to write a witchy story, or a witchy romance story in particular as well? Sarah, would you like to go first?
Oh, I mean, I've wanted to be an author forever. I tried to write a novel in first grade about the ants in the kitchen, and that was not successful. But I was writing, before I moved into writing romance, I was reading a lot of romance, but I was writing fantasy novels. And definitely I've always wanted to be in that speculative fiction space. So I have some trunked novels with like the Fae and various magical elements, and actually I'm going to have some news about that soon. But then in terms of the romance, I don't really know what sparked it. I think I'd been writing all of these fantasies with romantic subplots, and then I was like, you know, I'm not really seeing any success with these, so I want to try my hand at writing a romance because I really love reading romance. So I will do a romance first with a fantasy world, and that was amazing. And it felt like I also let myself be silly. I hadn't really let myself be silly in the fantasy novels I'd been writing, so this was my first time really experimenting with a funny tone and kind of campy and goofy. And it was just wonderful. So like the desire to write about magic had always been there, but specifically witchy rom-coms, that was when was I writing this? I guess this would have been 2020 or 2019, one of those. Time really smooshed there for a little bit.
It's just a long blur, isn't it?
That's
for about 2 years.
So yes, so I wrote it in the long blur is when I started writing witchy rom-coms.
There we go. Well, at least something good came out of that blur of time then.
Yeah, it was really hard to write though, especially that first book, because it had such a silly tone, and then it's really hard to sort of tap into that when the entire world feels so horrific. So it took me a lot longer to write than books generally do. I think it took me about 10 months for that first book, for A Witch's Guide. And normally if I would like to write a book in about probably like 2 to 3 months. So it took a lot longer than they normally would.
Yeah.
But it worked out, so that's good.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things where I think some writers will find the escapism in it, but other writers, if the world is burning, it can be a little bit hard to find the
we all burn
inspiration.
together.
Yeah. So Kate, how long has Willow been part of your ambition to have her out there for readers?
I never intended it to be a romance, witchy romance. I was writing a YA fantasy about the youngest witch in the story, Amber, and Willow popped up just as a side character. And the YA fantasy was getting so complicated that I just wrote a short story with Willow, and that's where the romance came into it. So my YA fantasy was put in a box, and I carried on with this one. But yeah.
Are you going to take it out of the box, do you think, and do the YA tie-in?
I think I probably will, because I know everything that happens in the story. I just need to finish it. So
I will say I think you probably need to, because I want to read that, because I've read that one. Just on a side note, please.
Okay, then.
There we go, because Jessica said so.
Okay, I'll make sure it's done then.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll take about 10 years, but yeah.
Got all the time in the world. I've got so many more on my TBR already. It's all good.
Yeah, we'll have some other books in between. I'm sure we need to get through.
Okay, so yeah, I keep forgetting. It's like, oh yeah, I need to talk and do the questions and
It's your
things.
turn,
So,
Jess.
yeah, so it's me. Sorry. Okay, so how do you think with witches are presented nowadays? What do you think has made it so popular now? What is the thing that came out and went, look at this subgenre now, please?
Yeah, Sarah. As
I'm
we've
like, I
got
feel
the
like
two,
sorry,
we'll
raise
do
my
Sarah
hand.
and
Yeah, sorry,
I
we're
think
just
we'll
waiting.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking about this. I think it's the cozy aspect that is really making it take off right now. It's escapism, but it's escapism that feels, at least for a lot of the ones that are big right now, feels low. Like the stakes can be high, but it doesn't feel like these books are going to deal significant emotional damage, which is important right now. And I think also because witchiness, it lends itself so well to stories of female empowerment, you know, struggling with your powers and struggling with your powers and your place in the world as a metaphor for what it is to be a woman in this world, and trying to find your place and trying to balance all of your obligations. And so I think there's something about this current trend where it's like, yes, like everything will be okay. Like you can grapple with accessing your magic or whatever else, but everything will be all right in the end, and the characters will thrive, and maybe you can thrive too. I think specifically because the world has felt so bleak for a while, that personally I need to read things where I'm like, you know what, it's okay. No high angst for me right now.
Yes, definitely get that. I mean, yeah, I came in, I got pulled into the bottom of the Akatar thing, and then you kind of get really sucked into that. So to be able to step back and go, actually, you know what? Yeah, just to sit and chill for a little bit is quite nice.
Yeah, it's
How's
quite
about
a
you?
different yeah, there's like the fantasy romance that still deals in quite big stakes, and they're more drawn out over series, and you don't know which characters are going to make it through and which ones aren't, whereas the witchy rom-coms seem to be, like you were saying, a little bit more based on the romance kind of model of, we know there's going to be a happily ever after or a happily for now, so any of the high stakes can kind of, you can just enjoy the fun of it and know it'll be okay at the end, can't you?
I mean, obviously we're in this huge romantasy boom that's happening. And I'm sure the market is just going to be absolutely flooded. And it's great because I love this. I love romantasy as a genre. Like, this is my time to read all of the books. But I think we're starting to get a lot of those more serious multi-book, you don't know who's going to live and who's not. And I'm going to read them all and I'm going to love them. But I do think the little cozy witch niche has been a very necessary one.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, when we started doing this like a few years ago, we struggled to find them, and now you can kind of pick them out everywhere, and it's so nice to be able to do that. Kate, what about you, matey?
I think, yeah, you need the escapism and the empowerment of the characters. So yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah,
you need the
concur.
coziness.
Yeah.
And happy ever after.
Yeah, they're very different. I'm going to go on a tangent. Sorry, I do that.
I
was just thinking, like, between the two of your books, because I've read them both, like, they're both very full of atmosphere and magic, but in very different ways. So Sarah, you've done yours, and it's you've got like an alternative version of our world where it's magic, everybody knows about magic and magical creatures are out in the open, whereas Kate, yours is like very it's like it's like magical realism almost, isn't it? Because it's magic as people actually practice it today, but just that little bit further along. But they've both got that lovely cozy element, so that does seem to be like a uniting factor in it for sure. Yeah, and just thinking about that, like, what led to your decisions about choosing to do that, really? Sarah, I'll start with you, because you went for that alternative route.
In terms of the world building,
Yeah.
it felt like the biggest, most expansive, most fun version I could do. I really liked having magic out in the open because it not only gave me a chance, like I love world building. I love thinking about what the world would look like. And so you start imagining like, how do centaurs navigate this world, and how is the architecture built, and how is society structured, and what is it like to actually live in this town. And I got to make a lot of very silly jokes because you can start making puns about like magical dupes of real world things as you sort of blend what's real and what's not. It was just really fun. And I also liked it as an opportunity to make the world more utopian, sort of in an inclusive world where everyone's welcome. And there are accommodations, you know, for people with hooves and people with wings, and just a chance to, for me, it felt like writing more pure escapism, and trying to make it feel like not just a fantastical world, but a welcoming one, without a lot of the baggage of trying to do our world, but with magic in it. So yeah, I think that's where I was going with that.
Yeah. So, Kate, why did you decide on a different route?
I think it was because it was the character Willow is already in the other book, and that is set part in a fantastical world and part in reality. And Willow was in the reality part.
Okay.
So it had to follow through. The decision was already made.
I see.
That she was in reality and the shop would be part of the magic.
So is there's a more fantastical world in your YA one with Amber then?
It is, yes.
We'll get to see that if you...
Possibly, yeah.
Oh,
you see parts of it in the Blend of Magic.
Oh, is it like the dream walking stuff?
But it's all the dream walking and stuff.
Yeah.
In the first one.
That was very cool. Yeah.
Drop the little snippets in there, Emma.
Little teasers. Sorry, that's not a spoiler, is it? Is that a spoiler?
No, I don't think it's a spoiler.
I can never tell sometimes, you know, some things are like as a writer, you just like, oh no, why did they say that? You know, why have they spoken about that bit? Because you spent so long like just drip feeding it in and then getting to the end. But yeah, I thought that's a fun element. They can wait and see when that happens and what it's used for.
Okay, so yeah, while we're on the fun aspect of things then, so if you were going to create a spell to make the perfect witchy romance, what would be the ingredients that you would put into it? So yeah, we mentioned about tropes and vibes and the bits of magic that you would throw in.
Well, there can only be one bed. No matter how many beds the recipe calls for, you can only put one in there.
Okay, but I'm behind that.
Totally agree.
Very important. And Emma, I think you have one bed that malfunctions.
I do. Oh yeah.
So even better if it's a malfunctioning bed.
Yes. And I've done it in the one I'm writing at the moment as well. And I had this moment of, oh, should I do only one bed again? And I was like, yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm doing it again. I
think like every single book in the Glimmer Falls has one bed at some point. It's important. I just love it. I need it. And I think at least enemies to lovers or rivals to lovers lends itself very well to witchy romances, just because if you have people with opposing goals and maybe different types of magic, or if you've got the tension between, you know, a witch trying to keep their identity secret and the world out there wanting to find out about them, and that I think any kind of oppositional forces mix that in there as well for the potion.
I loved how in your book it was like they were just tied together as well. It was like, because that to me is just catnip, having that forced proximity as well. We have to have these characters on the page, like a lot. I love that.
And for anyone who hasn't read it yet, so the first book, a witch accidentally summons a demon and he can't leave until he gets her soul, and so he actually cannot physically get particularly far away from her. And he cannot leave, and so he's just trying to like harass her into giving up her soul while he falls in love. And then the second one, it's a road trip where they're both in danger, so they're in the same car a whole lot. And then the third one, I don't know, have you all read Ella Enchanted or watched the movie?
The
There's
film
Yeah, I've
ages
seen the
ago.
film.
so there's an
Yeah,
element
yeah.
where she has to obey the commands. There's this
Okay.
spell where she's obedient, and so the third book has something like that, where this vampire succubus has been trapped by a curse, and anyone who sort of owns her earthly vessel has the ability to give her direct commands, and so that accidentally ends up being this very well-meaning, sweet, anxious werewolf hero. And so there's a bit of forced proximity as well. I mean, there's sort of, she's living with him because she's from the medieval era. She has no idea where she is, but then also I think the emotional proximity of that, in a way, of how do you navigate this person who has complete control over your existence if they choose to exert it. So I think it's more of an emotional proximity than necessarily physical. But yeah, but I love that too, just like smash them together and smash the dolls together and make them kiss. Like, I don't know, it's great.
You will fit. So how about you, Kat? What would you be sticking in there?
I think, as well as the close proximity, so you could get the chemistry and the sparks flying, whether it's romantic or they hate each other. Location. I really like world building and location. So the actual setting has a personality of its own as well.
Really, really does.
Oh.
Sometimes that is the thing that can just pull you straight in, and that's that'll be the 2 a.m. reading, won't it? Where you're like, I just have to get a bit more in.
Yeah, just like, and the way you've done it in your book is just it. I just want to go there. You should talk to the tourism board, because I now really, really want to go to Whitby. You should have your book there because it's doing the job. Like, and York as well. They're just they're beautiful places anyway. But you've just really captured them, and that really helps because they just inherently feel that way. There's so much history there, isn't there? That you get that magical sense to them as
soon
well.
as you go there, you can sense the magic in there.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite elements of the world building where you created, and little details that to you really make it shine, like your personal favorites?
I think it's mainly the shop. It's based in the shop, the Enchanted Emporium. So it's all the little details and the ghosts that haunt the shop. So they know all the history about the ghosts and stuff like that. So yeah.
We were talking about ghosts earlier, weren't we, Jess? Like the show. Have you ever watched?
Yes, sorry.
The
Took me a minute there.
sorry. Have you ever watched the US version, Sarah, of a show called Ghosts?
I think I've watched a few episodes of both the US and the UK version.
Okay.
And I don't know why I didn't finish it, because it's absolutely something I'd want. And I have another romance series coming eventually down the line that's going to be about paranormal investigators, and one of them is a ghost romance. So very excited about that.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Yeah. Keep an eye out for that one.
So on the back of that, just quickly, because I don't write witchy, I'm kind of a little bit on the darker side of things. Is there anything that you think wouldn't work well for a witchy romance? That's open to all of you. Emma, you can answer too. You have a witchy book in there.
Yeah, I know. I've got my head tuned into the host side. I'm not
Sorry,
answering questions
out, yes.
today. I don't know. I'd find it very hard to say anything that you couldn't do, because like we discover this, don't we, on the podcast, Jess, when we're talking about tropes, is that there are tropes that we say we're not too keen on, but we can always find someone that does it in the way that it works for you. Definitely. We've had this experience with secret babies and things like that. It's not a favorite trope.
No, but we found them when
we
we've
found
looked.
some.
Okay, I'm going to need those recommendations, because secret baby is not the trope of my heart at all. But I understand a lot of people love it. So if you have recommendations to turn me on to secret baby, please let me know.
We will send them your way.
I'll have them too.
That's it. It's funny, isn't it? We feel like we need to do the homework. That's a trope I don't usually like, but if you can find one that I like, I want to read it. I want to be proved wrong. Yeah, I don't know. I guess with witchy rom-coms, it's that thing we're talking about, the lighter and the darker side of presenting witches. It's kind of a fine line you have to draw, and depends how you want to choose to do it. Like you've chosen, Sarah, haven't you? Because of you saying if you alter the world we're in so that it's more inclusive and, you know, what we'd prefer the world to look like, you can kind of skirt some of that darker element of the witch in history, but you can still, there are still witchy rom-coms that involve it, and yours is like that, Kate, isn't it? You've got elements that
there's
bring in more of that historical side of it.
and there's darkness in there more as well.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
really-
anything goes, doesn't it, really?
Mhm.
I think
I also
so.
think it's the wonderful thing about fantasy romances in general is that the stakes can be so different and so interesting.
Mhm.
And as big as you want or as small as you want, it really gives you so much room to play with, because you could get to make up your own magic. You get to decide what that looks like. So I think it's why I love fantasy so much as a genre, is just the massive playground. And there are definitely like dark fantasy books that I really enjoy. And I feel like there's so many different flavors within it that I'm struggling to think of anything you couldn't put in a witchy rom-com except for like a unhappy ending. Like don't kill them off at the end. And
No.
Not in a rom-com.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't know.
Yeah, we will come for you if you do.
Or you could actually kill them, but you have to bring them back. Or have some kind of, or maybe like a happy ghost romance together. Like there's got to be something.
I find that really
necromancy.
hard with necromancy.
Yeah,
I wasn't going there.
Where my brain went, sorry.
Oh, I was just thinking about the ghost ones. There've been like some really good romances with one of the other people being a ghost, and I really struggle. I look at them and I'm like, how are they gonna work this out to have a happily ever after? That's, you've really, the writers have really got the good imagination to think up how they're gonna work that. Definitely. That kind of leads in a little bit what you were saying, Sarah, to our next question, which was about magic systems and what you enjoyed writing most about the magic system you created.
So personally, I'm going to talk about something that I really liked and then really didn't like when I had to continue
that
doing
too.
it. So my magic system involves witches have to combine spell words and actions, and so the actions can be anything from drawing runes to weaving patterns in thread or dancing. It's sort of a way to ritualistically channel the intention of the spell, but they also have to speak the language. And so I wanted a really fun language that would sound magical, that would make sense with me not being a linguist. So I ended up doing, I think it's called an agglutinating language, where you have these compound words. And so one word will have who's performing the action and what the target is and what the general intent is. And so almost every spell in the books will be 2 compound words and then like a little fake word connecting them. And so that was really fun. So because I sort of come up with it, I spent some time in Turkey. I have a past life as an archaeologist. And so I remember like studying a little bit of Turkish and just really liking how to form all of these words that would tell you like when something is happening and who it's happening to and all of that. So that was really fun until I realized I had to keep doing it when I am not a linguist and I'm trying to frantically to hit the deadlines for books 2 and 3. And so in the copy I turned into my editor, I would say just in all caps, like spell word, sort of like that's a problem for future Sarah to look this up. And then, you get the things back for copy edits and the editor's like, you have to actually put spells here. And then I'm like looking up roots of words. And then I'm trying to remember what I did because it feels like it was 1,000 years ago. And like, what were the rules I came up with? And sometimes spells will repeat, or it'll be so like there's a spell in the first book where they're heating a skillet. And then there's a later spell in book 2, I think, where they're like heating a tent. And then in book 3, there's a spell where they're drying people who just got dunked in an icy lake. And so I was like, well, shoot, it has to sort of be the same basic root and probably the same basic structure, but then I have to change what it's paired with depending on what's being heated and how many people. So it's like, okay, if there's one skillet, like the language is so specific, like this is a skillet that used to belong to, and the spell words actually have a really important thing to do with big twist in book 1. So it's like, well, that skillet is, your skillet, but it used to belong to so-and-so. And that's how you say this in this word. But then there would be a different structure of it saying, well, I'm going to heat multiples of this thing that I own, would have a different structure. And someone's going to read this, some linguist is going to read this and be like, this is terrible. And a really horrible approximation of how language works. But like I tried.
That is
Fantasy, you can make it your own. It's all good.
That
This is
sounded
Sarah's
so
language now.
ambitious. That was like when you said, "I'm not a linguist," and then you went,
But-
"Compound this and this," and then put it together. I was like, "Oh my god!" I was just like, "I'm not doing spell words." And I just made that decision. I was like, "I'm never any good at coming up with stuff like that." So I
think you picked the wiser path.
I get out of it. I'm like,
I have
and then they
regrets.
said a magic word, and that's it.
Yes.
You can imagine what it is.
I did start doing that, where it's like, if it's not the actual witch speaking the spell, because originally, if it's some other character, I'll have the character be like, I don't know, they muttered a spell, and that's because I didn't want to come up with what that spell was.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the only reason. They're like, oh, it seemed really complicated. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure it was. Don't ask me what it was.
What about you, Katie?
I'm just so glad that I based mine on old spell books and things like that, and tea. I didn't have to
Yeah.
think about any languages or anything.
So is that what you enjoyed diving into? Was it the
Yeah,
research and
I
stuff?
enjoyed
or-
all the research and things like that. But I also enjoyed like the family trees of all my witches, and so I know that there'll be parts in books in the future that will be linked to the 17th century witches,
Oh,
and then you'll be able to see who's connected to who.
mm-hmm.
So I enjoyed all that bit. But I enjoyed doing Amber's magic because she's more powerful and takes more risks.
Yeah.
She doesn't care.
As
Do
is
you
a
have
teenager's
family
want.
trees written down? Like, do you have a book where you've got like the family trees and the history? Or is it in
I
your
do,
head?
yeah. I have most of it's in my head, but I do have bits of paper with all the family trees in. And so which
I bet
It's
readers would
rich.
love to see
Yeah.
that. If you add a
Yeah.
little appendix in your next
Yeah, yeah.
books. That sounds interesting.
so and which village is connected to the witches as well, because there's like several villages in Yorkshire that are all connected with different witches and how they all connected to the ones in Whitby.
Yeah. Was there anything you didn't like doing about the magic system?
I don't think there was anything I didn't like. I just like doing magic. It's much more fun than reality.
There we go.
I think
Really
I
is.
found a similar problem with like what you were saying, Sarah, in that when you've decided to use magic for one thing, having to remember that, oh, well, they use magic for that kind of thing. And each time something like that comes up, you're like, well, they're a witch. Why wouldn't they use the magic there? And I find it quite difficult finding places where they would use magic where we actually have technology that's probably just easier to use than doing a spell and expending the energy and deciding when they would do it and remembering what they were capable of doing in the past. It's a lot of remembering. I think the writing down that you do, Katie, is something that I really should do a lot more. Should have the Bibles, my own spell books and things of stuff I've made up. Definitely.
This is probably why I don't do witchy things, because it'd be like, Siri, give me a hand, please. Come on. Alexa, sort it, please. Sorry if I've turned anybody's on.
Yeah.
But yeah, going on to the tea that you mentioned, Katie, we're cozy. It's November. We all kind of want to be in that little bubble of warmth. So who out of your characters would you like to share a cup of tea and or coffee with? And do you think any of your characters are a little bit like you in any ways?
I'd like to spend my time with Louise, which is Willow's best friend and Amber's mum.
Yeah.
She's not mentioned much in the book, but she's more powerful than any of them, and she's got a lot of history, and I'd like to tap into her to help me write the other ones.
Yeah, the backstory for that would be, having read the book would be very interesting to see.
Yeah. So, but I think I'm more like Willow with her tea addiction and her teacup addiction. And
how many do you have? A lot of teacups?
I do have an awful lot of teacups, but not as many as Willow.
Do you have any within easy reach? You can show us your teacups.
I haven't. I've got a mugs. I've got my teacup. My cat.
Oh,
mug.
the kitty!
Oh, all my teacups are downstairs.
See, now you need to give us a picture so we can put it out online for everybody to see.
Yeah,
I'll
definitely.
do some photos of my teacup collection. But since writing the book, you keep thinking, I need to buy that teacup because Willow would like it.
Yeah, need another one.
It's funny. I just I love going to antique markets and thrift stores and things like that. And so I went to this place where this woman was a porcelain teacup collector. And so I don't drink tea out of them, but I did make one into a little succulent garden. So I planted like a tiny succulent in it and its little saucer. It's somewhere around here. I could always get it
that too. Yeah, definitely.
More pictures. More pictures.
Yeah, all the pictures.
So what about you, Sarah? Who are you sharing a cuppa with?
Okay, so it's probably going to be Astaroth, who is the hero of A Demon's Guide to Wooing a Witch. He is this 600-plus-year-old demon. He is actually British. I hope I did the representation okay and no one hates me.
He's a bit of a villain in the first one, isn't he?
He's the
That's
villain
fine by
of the
me.
first. I know he's the villain of the first book, but and every time someone was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe this guy is the hero of book 2," I was like, "He has a cane sword. He had a cane sword in book 1. Like, clearly, I am attracted to this man. Like, what are you talking about?"
He's dapper. He's got a
so he's
accent.
dapper. He's very snarky. He's really outrageous. He's a lot of fun. He has amnesia in book 2, so that facilitates his redemption arc. But I think he's just such an outrageous character in general, and he was so fun to write. He's got all these strong opinions on things like marketing and like the chivalric code, and he's just like, he's full of opinions and he's full of thoughts, and like half of them are really absurd, but you're like, okay, I guess you have a point. And he has a sword. I'm like, that would just be like a really fun coffee date. I wish I was like Astaroth, but honestly, characters I'm most like, it would probably be well, there's Mariel Spark, who is the heroine of book 1, and she's flighty. She's got a really scattered thought process. She's got a million questions, and so I very much based her off of how I think, which is sort of constantly reaching out into strange directions and rambling on about them. And then the hero of book 3 is named Ben, and he is a werewolf and he has anxiety. And he's very much sort of like the sad elements where you're like, you want to be the best, most thoughtful person you can be, but you're always like convinced you're missing the mark. He's very much like a soft, sort of secretly insecure character. In a lot of ways I am. So I feel like the soft, anxious mortals in this series are the ones that I'm much more like than the very interesting kind of outrageous immortal types. Even if I wish I was like a warrior, princess, that would be nice.
You need just a cane sword anyway. I think you should purchase one of these.
Oh my god, I want one so badly. I will find a way. I always, every time I go to an antique store, I look at the canes just in case, because I'm convinced there must be one out there that I will find.
I was going to say, do you actually have a sword on your wall? Is that what I'm seeing?
Oh, yes, there is a sword on the wall behind me.
Start for 10.
I could bring it. I could show it to you if you like. I don't know if we.
That's fine by me. I'm good with that.
Okay, hold on just a moment.
Interlude. So we should do some music for that. Like, so cool.
Okay. I just realized I can't bring it down because there are a ton of Christmas ornaments hanging from it, and they will all clatter to the floor and then fall on my cats. Fine. And it will cause problems. So maybe I can take pictures
for later, just for Jessica's approval. See, what you need to do when you said you're coming to the UK next year.
Yes, I
am.
Come
around
in
here.
March.
Yeah, definitely go and mooch around our antique shops, because my other half's mother has loads of daggers and swords and things she's picked up along the way. So knock yourself out, go and have a mooch around our shops.
That'd be good. And then customs will be like, why do you have like a 3-foot
I was
dagger
say,
in your suitcase? I'm like, don't worry about it.
I got a massive cane. Yeah, I'm an author. This is how I got a cane from the US back here. Really easy, big, long one with a pull-out sword at the end. You're fine.
Okay. Yeah, I actually have. I have a lot of. I have a dagger collection too. A lot of those. That was a gift from I did fencing in high school, and so that was a gift from my fencing instructor. It is not the actual swords that we were fighting with, but it was sort of a graduation gift, I suppose.
So you were saying that you weren't like these people with the corpse, and you literally have done fencing.
I wasn't good. I was not good at fencing. I don't think I ever won a bout. It was very much, it was a sort of a weekend thing for the theater kids. He taught stage fencing and then would teach us actual fencing on the weekends. And I was just very bad at it because I would be there. I would just freeze up. I'm like, I'm supposed to stab people and I can't remember what I'm supposed to do. And then they're swinging a sword at you and you're like, oh no, don't hurt me.
I think that would be my reaction.
I
You've
think,
done really
yeah.
cool stuff as well, haven't you, Jess? You were doing axe throwing not long ago.
I was axe throwing the other week. Yes. Jesus, that was the scariest moment of my life. When they go, oh yeah, just be aware they will bounce back. And you're like, but pardon what now? Nobody signed me up for this. I've had a drink and that's what? So yeah.
Wait, were you good at it? Did you actually hit things that you're supposed to hit?
Yeah, so
you were
they kind of-
debating whether to be modest or not there, and you're like, yes, you were good at it.
So the first 10 minutes when they're like, oh yeah, just do this, just so that, and you're like, you don't know what you're doing, and then you just get this like, I'm trying to think of a female warrior, but none are coming to mind. But yeah, you kind of like Xena, you get this moment and you get it and you just, and then they show you how to do it two-handed. So that's it. You are just 2 hands and just go. So yeah, it got in the wall several times. If I was being chased by a serial killer, I would be dead. But if he was really slow, I'd probably be okay.
Just stay there for a minute. Just stay there.
The moment someone pulls out an axe, I feel like the serial killer would say, maybe I'll find someone else. Like, it doesn't really matter if you know how to use it. You are carrying it.
It's true. So just the fact you have it.
Yeah. But on that note, you would be arrested in the UK for carrying an axe. Sorry, we've totally gone off topic now.
I don't even know how to go into the next question. Yeah, so the last question we have was just about, because we were saying how we've been doing this podcast for quite a long time, and like our love of fantasy romance has seen quite a change in the publishing industry because of it. Like, it's very, very popular now, but a lot of readers were mainly reading indie authors because that's where they could find the kind of fantasy romance that they were after. So we just were wondering if you had any indie authors whose books you have really, really enjoyed that you wish more people knew about. And if you wanted to recommend them, this is the time for it. We love getting recommendations because more books. More books for the TBR. So, Sarah, have you got any?
Yeah, well, this was surprisingly hard because I was thinking about the indie series that I'd read before, and a lot of them have now been picked up by traditional publishing. So Laura Thalassa's The Rhapsodic, the Bargainer series, I think that's been picked up by Bloom Books. And so, yeah, so that was originally one that I read when it was self-published, and I think now it is traditionally published. K Mulford had the same thing, like very popular self-published author, and now traditionally published. So then I was like Googling, I'm like, how many of these people have been picked up? And I think one I really liked was Radiance by Grace Draven. I think that one is still pure indie. Oh, that one's great. It's an arranged marriage between, it's sort of a married to friends to lovers of 2 different species. And what I loved about it is that they are just purely physically disgusted by each other. When they first marry, like he's got like, I think he's got like gray-green skin and like sharp teeth and like no whites to his eyes. And he looks at this human, and I remember him describing like her eyes are like rolling like a horse. He's like, why is the whites of the eyes really freaked him out?
And
he's
her
like,
blunt
pink.
teeth.
Yeah, the blunt teeth. He's like, oh my God, this is, and so like they're both just like, like and they tell each other like, oh, you're just an idiot, like in very joking ways. Like they become very good friends and sort of falling in love despite the fact that they find each other so physically repulsive and completely different species. So I really liked that one. I guess that would be my recommendation.
I was going to say, I think we did mention it. That it has been mentioned in the podcast previously. Yes.
Yeah. I love Grace Draven. I think she does some great stuff. But that was the first one of hers that I read. Definitely, it was just a really different take on that forced proximity and the arranged marriage thing. Because usually you get their enemies to lovers forced to marry, but their attraction is usually there from the get-go. It's just that they're fighting it the whole time, and it was really different. Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. Katie, you read loads of books because you have your blog, don't you? So have you got any in particular, any standouts to you, indies that you would
Any
love to
standouts? I
champion?
think at the moment, Lilian Brooks, who writes the Whitby of Witches series, just because
Okay.
even though they're based in Whitby like mine, but they're so different.
Yeah.
So I think her, and you've got Sharon Booth, the Castle Clair Witches as well
Yeah.
series. But also you've got Iris Beaglehole, who
Okay.
writes the Myrtlewood mysteries. So she's got a whole world. She's got written so many now, but she's
Yeah.
got a whole world of witches and vampires and shifters, all in cozy villages. So yeah, I really like her books
Are
as well.
are they all standalones, or are
They're
they?
all standalones, but they're all interlinked. So
Yeah.
I think you can just like pick one up and
Yeah.
read one. But if you read the whole series,
Jess is just shaking
Sorry,
her head
no,
at
you
me.
can't. You have to start at
Don't
book
tell
one,
Emma
and then
that.
you have
Okay.
to.
She'll just randomly read book
Sorry,
6, book
you have
14.
no.
but
Book
she
one.
started some for. She started a children's series as well, and a series for older women. So
Oh,
you've got the
okay.
whole different range. So you've got the kids and the menopausal women as well. So it's all different.
Brilliant.
Excellent.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that wraps us up for
It
our
does.
witchy discussions. Yeah, would you like to tell us where people can find you, the best way, if you've got a newsletter or website or anything like that, Sarah?
Yes. So my author website is sarahhawleyauthor.com. And my social media, I'm pretty much just on Instagram these days, but the handles I think are all Ms. Sarah Hawley. And I've got a newsletter. I always do cover reveals and big news through the newsletter first, and then put them out on social media. And then in terms of seeing me in person for your UK listeners, I will be in the UK next March. I'm doing Glance Fest in London, which is like March 16th-ish, somewhere in there. And then I have no idea where I'm going after that, but I will be traveling around for 2 weeks and making various appearances. So would love to see people.
Oh, keep us posted with your dates. We can put them out there for
I
people.
will.
Yeah. Brilliant. And Kate, where's the best place for people to find you?
I'm on katekenzie.com, which is my website, and my social media handle is KAKenzie101. And I have newsletters, but I'm not very good at actually sending them. They're written, but I always forget to press send.
Oh no. Do you send yours regularly, Sarah? Is it like a standard thing, or is it just because some people just do it when it's news and some people do it like very
it's
regular?
just when it's news, so it might be like 6 months between them, or you might get multiples in a month. It all kind of depends. But sometimes I do put pictures of my cats in them, so that's important.
Okay. Yeah.
Really? Okay, send pictures of cats too. I'm all here for that.
Yeah, I am amazed that
I've
they
been
have
waiting.
not tried to
Yeah.
wreak havoc. Yeah, they almost always try to wreak havoc during interviews, and instead they are sleeping in the sunshine. So
Yeah, they had the
we got
perfect
lucky.
opportunity and they just didn't.
Yeah,
They
I
just didn't do
was
it.
so I loved it. You did a post when you got the proof of my book, and your cat, one of your cats, was winding through them, and another one on social media. I loved it. I was like, oh look, that's brilliant. Okay, well, I think that's us. We're wrapping up for the winter, so lots of cozy fantasy romance there for people to be enjoying through the dreary months.
Cold out, dark out, but mince pies, so it's all good.
Mince pies, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mince pies and twinkly lights. Do you already have your Christmas decorations up, Sarah, or those ones that live there all year round?
They're all year round.
Okay.
They were not intended to be all year round, but you know what? I don't know.
Why not?
This is it. My Halloween, it goes up and it never comes down.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Got to be done. All right. So thank you everybody for joining us.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
to
you
our
so
lovely
much.
ladies. It was lovely having you.
Yeah.
Thank you for hosting.
Yeah,
You're
thanks for
very
having us.
welcome. Yeah.
Job done. All right, and we'll see you in the new year.
Yeah, what should we say? I think probably springtime we'll be looking at the next season, won't we? So
Yeah, we'll say that.
keep posting. Why do you say it like that? Is it going to be later? Is it going to be sooner? I don't know.
I don't know. We are like a newsletter. We'll come when we get there.
It will happen when it happens.
When it happens, we'll get there. It's all good.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Be good. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.